Welcome back, everyone, once again to the How Low Can You Go Golf Podcast. This is a really special episode for us. We are welcoming to the show someone who we have talked about almost, I think, on every episode so far. We have quoted him, we have referenced him, but today we're going to welcome him. Karl Morris, welcome to the How Low Can You Go Golf Podcast.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here with you, and I love the title of the show. What a great start.
Well, that means a lot, Karl, honestly, and just for your benefit to share a bit about our background and why we started this show. We decided, what you often tell people to do is we decided to take action. We thought an ultimate way of holding each other accountable to try and reach our golfing targets is to start a podcast. So from my perspective, I was formerly an absolutely atrocious golfer. I'm now a kind of mid-handicapper, and I would love to get to single figures. Chris, my partner on this podcast, has been a low single-figure handicapper, a sort of 2-3 handicap for so long, but just can't break through to scratch. Every season just is close, but just ends in that frustration. So that's why we started this. We feel like if we can learn and get to these places in public, we hope other golfers can kind of learn through following us through this journey. And I think we're just really fascinated by one big question is why do so many people, so many golfers work so hard at this crazy game, but never seem to get that much better? And I think for us, it's maybe not all about technical instruction, but maybe there's another way, which is why we're turning to you, and we want to
no pressure.
We really want to get some really good insights from you on this podcast, because just for those listeners who maybe are not as familiar with your work, do you mind just sharing a bit about your background before we get moving into the main podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the very short version because the long ones I get a bit bored going through it all these days. But yeah, my original background was I wanted to, similar to what we've just been talking about, I wanted to be a top player and I wanted to make my living from playing professional golf, and that was spectacularly unsuccessful as a player. And then I went into coaching, and I found after a number of years that I was just seeing the same things happening in coaching as that happened for my own playing career. I was pretty, I had some ability, and a lot of people used to talk about potential and things like that. And I was very good on the range and hit great shots on the range, had a pretty good swing, what I thought was a pretty good swing, but could never transfer it when I really wanted to play in big events. And then a kind of light bulb moment happened for me when I met a guy over in the States called Mike Hebron, who had a big influence on me. He was a great coach and has influenced a lot of coaches in the last 30, 40 years. And he'd written a book called Golf Mind, Golf Body, Golf Swing. And I was just fascinated by this guy who'd put this piece of work together. It was like the War and Peace of golf instruction. It was an incredible book. And I just thought, I've got to meet this guy. And this was way back. This was way before internet even, I mean, it was in the days when if you were going to go abroad, you had to go to a travel agent and book your flights and stuff like that. And,
I can vaguely remember those days as well.
Yeah. I mean, it seems archaic now, but anyway, I rang him up. And again, you wouldn't send a message on WhatsApp. You'd have to ring on the landline, yes, to the States. And you're thinking, Jesus, this is going to cost me about £300 just to speak to him.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. Anyway, very long story short, he was fantastic with me, and he said, "Yeah, come over and see me. We'll work on your game a little bit, and you can watch me coach." So I went over to a beautiful place on Long Island called Smithtown Landing. And he was very, very kind with me. It was a special few days, actually. And I watched him coach, and then he asked me, did I coach? And I said, yeah. And he said, how many players do you get to improve in a year? And it was one of those moments I thought, do I actually answer correctly? Or do I answer him what I think he wants me to say? And I said, I don't know, about 20 or 30. And he looked at me and he said, if I get one player a year to really improve, I think I've had a good year.
No way.
I immediately thought, my God, this guy, he's put all this information together. He's got this amazing book. he's saying by his own admission he gets one player to really improve in a year. And all credit to Mike, he's changed completely since those days because he was very much a golf machine guy. But I left New York after watching him coach, and I thought, I'm really missing something here. You know, I've been gone in search for this golf swing that won't break down under pressure. And I've gone over that. I thought, I'm going to put all of this stuff on one side, all the swing stuff on one side. It must be all in the mind. And I came back over to the UK. And at first I started to see kind of academic people, really, and academic sports psychologists. And I'll never forget one guy saying to me, he said, when you're not performing well under pressure, the left hemisphere of your brain is overriding the right hemisphere of your brain. Your amygdala's firing inappropriately and your cortex isn't functioning correctly. And I'm thinking, Jesus, just give me something to stop myself shitting myself on the first tee. Give me something practical that I can do. And I kind of came to the conclusion after that anybody who says that this game is all about the swing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who says that it's all in the mind is wrong. And really, to get the best out of your game, it's really important to blend the two things together. And I've kind of come to the conclusion after all these years, you can boil it down really to a couple of things to get better at golf. One is that you need to develop skills, but then you need to be able to access those skills.
Okay.
And I think, very few people work on developing skills. To answer your question, Ibby, why don't people get lower and get to the handicap that they want? Because I don't think they focus enough on skills. They're obsessed with swings, which is a very different thing. But then even if they develop some skills, they then can't access those skills.
Yeah.
So I think in the future, the coach who can help players develop skill and then be able to access those skills is going to be very, very valuable indeed. So kind of a long answer to what was a very simple question. Really.
No, it's great, Karl. And I think, you've been extremely humble. There is the small matter of you've worked with several major winners in your time, helping them do exactly what you said, helping them access their skill, because these guys have unbelievable levels of skill, but sometimes, as we see on the TV all the time, sometimes that skill deserts them.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we can look at this, and after all these years now, I think I've got to a point where I'm not saying it's simple, but I think it's really clear that for me, the reason why we don't access those skills primarily is because we have a brain. Our brain really doesn't give a shit whether we play good golf or not. Our brain is still hardwired to do one thing and one thing alone, which is to help us survive.
Yeah.
That's its primary goal. That's what the brain is concerned with more than anything else, whether we like it or not. That's a primeval instinct. And then you think, okay, well, what's going on when we go to a golf course and we don't perform well with this brain that is primarily focused on survival? Well, our brain, when we go to the golf course, is either seeing the golf course as a threat or an opportunity.
Yeah.
And if our brain is perceiving threat, then our ability to coordinate movement, sequence golf swings, be able to chip and putt and feel shots around the green, that ability is compromised then as a result of our brain perceiving threat. And that sounds a crazy thing to say, because what's the threat really with golf? I worked in rugby league for 6 years, and if ever there was a sport where there is ever-present threat in every game, where you've got
a real risk to life there.
A risk to life. You've got 26 very big, very strong, angry men who run into each other a lot. That's a dangerous sport. But I saw
usually angry northerners.
Northerners, exactly. Yeah. It's a real game of rugby, but we'll not get into that. I didn't say that. But yeah,
let's stick to golf.
Let's stick to golf. I saw very little fear in rugby league.
Yeah.
And then we come to a game like golf. And I remember talking to a Formula One driver who, playing in a Pro-Am, was literally shaking on the first tee. And I said to him, you're taking corners at 200 miles an hour when you're briving your car, and you're not batting an eyelid. And he said, I just hate that first tee shot at golf. He said, I'm literally, bricking myself. And And then when you dig a little bit deeper and you start to sort of understand what's really going on, you think, what's our brain up to? Well, if you think about it, when we roamed around in caves, what was the number one thing that we had to do to survive, apart from finding food, was to actually remain a prominent member of a tribe.
Yeah.
So if we could only survive, and it was very, very important that we stayed within a tribe or a group. And if we got ostracized from that group, that meant one thing, which was death.
Yeah.
Now you're probably thinking, where's he going now with this related to golf? Well, these days our brain sees the tribe as being the tribe called golf.
Okay.
And if it's perceiving that the way you play on the golf course, perceiving is the word, is going to make you look less in the group called golfers or the tribe called golfers, then the sort of fear response, the trigger mechanism comes in, and that's when we have some of the problems accessing our skills.
See, I've said this to Dave many times. We've talked about this, and it's obviously since starting the podcast, it's the fear aspect that I've had. You're saying that the feeling as golf is like a tribe, and obviously we're putting ourselves out there for everybody to kind of analyze. That kind of fear is sitting on my shoulder way more than it ever did than being by myself, if that makes sense. And we've spoke about that a lot, and it's just trying to, like you're saying, be able to be comfortable with that as well.
And one of the things with that, Chris, that's really important is to not to be at war with your brain.
Yeah.
To actually realize that if you're feeling uncomfortable and nervous and anxious, that's a brain working perfectly because it's concerned with survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, then you sort of say, okay, well, what do we do with this? And as crazy as this sounds, in simple terms, you know, to access your skills, you've got to use a series of tools to reduce the threat.
Okay.
So that your brain is seeing the golf course as an opportunity, as opposed to a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what I was going to then try and quiz you on, Karl. It's like, I kind of get that. Yes, we are standing there on the first tee, and almost ingrained in us through millions of years of evolution, or whatever you want to call it, or the way we've been wired. Like, how do we shake that off? Because it seems ridiculous. As you said, it seems ridiculous that we are kind of almost subconsciously fearing, like, that our lives are in danger in some ways, almost subconsciously, when we're that worried about a tee shot. Because I've been there. We've all been there. That's
literally what's going on, David. Subconsciously. And as crazy as it sounds, it's as though there's imminent. This sounds daft when we're talking about golf, but for me, this is what our brain is picking up when we play golf. It's like there's perceived threat because I might be reduced in the eyes of the group, the tribe called golfers.
Yeah.
And there's a physiological response to that. Now, the worst thing that you can do, I think, is to go to war with that and try and make all those feelings go away. And say, I shouldn't be feeling this, and this is awful. I can't handle this. And that's what most people do. Most people are trying to change or reframe and make things go away. They're actually resisting their experience. I think when you can turn this around and start to say, okay, brain, thanks very much for all this stuff that you're producing, all these feelings, but I'm going to be okay. And I think that's where tools like acceptance become such powerful tools to actually deal with this, because the reality of it is, let's say the yips is a good example. People will come and see me about the yips, and they'll say, I just hate yipping a chip or yipping a putt. I just don't want to feel that feeling. And I'll say, well,
I think we all hate that.
but I'll say, right there, if you think there's some magic potion I can give you that will take that away forever, we're not going to make much progress. But if you see that the yips are just a physiological response to what your brain is perceiving, then you start to approach it differently. But it's actually being willing to yip and being willing to feel this discomfort. And even in the presence of all of that, to still continue and accept and want to play, then we're starting to head into the right direction then. It's fundamentally for me, it's the resistance to our experience that's at the root of all our issues, not just in golf, but in life in general.
Yeah.
Wow. And you used the term acceptance there. And as you know, Karl, we've listened to your show intently for a long time. We've heard you talk about acceptance. I would almost say you've kind of put acceptance out there, and you also talked about skill earlier. You, I reckon, would consider acceptance as almost the most important, most fundamental skill any golfer at any level could develop. And so do you mind just telling us a bit more about what is acceptance in golf? And then secondly, I think the big one for me and Chris and for our listeners is, how do we train it? So first of all, what is acceptance? Are you saying that I need to be kind of blasting the ball out of bounds and being happy enough with that? Is that what you're saying? Or what is acceptance?
No. And that's the challenge with it, with acceptance, because I think most people struggle with acceptance. There's a couple of reasons why people struggle with acceptance. One is that you'll get one camp who thinks, well, acceptance is giving up or resignation or being happy with bad shots. And how the hell can I improve if I'm happy with bad shots? That's one camp. The other camp who sort of think, oh, yeah, I'll try that acceptance stuff. I'll give it a go. But deep down, they're thinking, I'll try that acceptance stuff if it'll make me play a bit better.
Yeah, I'll accept all of this as long as it's not that bad.
I'll accept everything as long as it actually is quite good and I actually score a bit better. So those are the kind of two camps, really. To me, what acceptance is none of those things like resignation. It's none of those things about being happy with bad shots or anything like that. It's a willingness to actually embrace the reality of the game.
Yeah.
Now, the reality of the game is I don't care who you are or what level you play. Nobody in the history of the game has ever got to the point where they've eliminated poor shots.
Yeah.
So here's something that, I've found a really useful thing to do. This would be a practical skill building element of acceptance. So, and hopefully people who are listening get something from this. So when you play golf, the reality is that every round of golf that Chris plays and you play for the rest of your lives, every round of golf is going to contain what I call ones, twos, and threes. In the sense that a one is a good shot, two is good enough, and three is poor. Now, even if Chris goes and shoots 64 and his best ever round, breaks the course record, I guarantee even in that 64, there'll be some threes, there'll be some poor shots in there.
Yeah.
I've had guys, a couple of guys who've shot 60s, and actually, I mean, curiously, one of them said, I actually really didn't play that well when he shot 60.
Yeah.
So,
wow, interesting.
The thing is that those ones, twos, and threes, so good shots, good enough, and poor, I'd ask everybody to think about your current relationship to the ones, twos, and threes. Okay. Most people, the better players' relationship goes something like this. They get to a point where the ones are only just good enough. The twos are actually categorized as poor shots, and the poor shots are the end of the world.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So when you've got a relationship to the reality of the game like that, you're not developing the skill of acceptance.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've said this to you, Chris, since you met me about 3-4 years ago, that I would say, in fairness to me, my golf has got better, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the big things that I found was because I was with Chris and I was going, whoa, this guy's a really good player. This guy's like low single digits. But something that I think has helped me improve a bit at golf is I saw Chris hitting bad shots.
I knew this was...
And I kind of I have. And I've seen Chris hit some shocking shots. And I think previously there was a myth around that where people like me thought, oh, those guys, they never hit bad shots. But one thing that I've always said to you, Chris, as well, is you are really, really good at shaking it off. You don't seem to dwell on it. And it's very rare that I would see you hit 2 threes, to use Karl's method here. I would rarely see you hit 2 threes in a row. Whereas for me, I think I can spiral and then hit any number of threes.
Yeah, I think that's like, it's the kind of recentering that we were wanting to try and obviously rack your brain about, because there are some shots that I will hit and then the next shot I'm not fully invested again, and it's maybe not a terrible shot, but maybe I missed the green or a putt that I've not committed to. One of the things we wanted to ask, like how do you recenter after a bad shot with that acceptance as well? That was one of the questions.
Well, I think what most people find when they start looking, a really useful thing on that, Chris, is to actually play a bunch of rounds where you give each shot a number. So you actually say that was a 1, and I'll say change your relationship to the 1. If are you allowed to swear on this show?
You do whatever you want, Karl.
Sometimes you need to actually say when you've hit a 1, do you know what, that was a fucking good shot. That, and actually, give yourself credit for that. But I think then if you get a bit better at giving the 2s a label of a 2, so. You've hit an awful skanky shot out of the heel, but it's in the fairway. That's good enough.
Yeah.
You've caught a wedge pretty heavy, but it's actually on the front of the green. It's not a good shot, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
And when you develop a better relationship to the 2s, to the good enoughs, because most people's rounds, there's a lot of good enough in there.
Yeah.
But it's the reaction to the good enough that causes the issue.
See, I think it was yesterday, it was Max Homa was doing something on YouTube and he heeled a driver and the guy's like, oh, that wasn't the best shot. He's like, yeah, but I heeled a driver and it's still in the right part of the rough. It's not out of bounds. And he was like, if you're looking at that and thinking that was the worst shot, then you are going to kick yourself all the time around the course. And it's like what you've said, becoming more accepting of your 2s and understanding them, and maybe look on the glass half full side of it instead of dragging yourself down.
And just going further on that, Chris, that one thing that a lot of players have found useful relating to the 3s, and I'll ask you both here, and everybody listening could answer this question. Let's say that you guys go and play tomorrow, and you play it as good as you can possibly play. You shoot your lowest round of the year. Even if you had a great game of golf tomorrow, realistically, how many 3s are there still likely to be in a round of golf?
I'd say there's a lot.
Chris, what would you say?
We've had this actually before. This is a great question because I've shot, say, 1 under before, but the front 9 was a battle. And then the back 9, when I kind of just let the shoulders relax, I then was just more in the groove. I wasn't chasing anything. So let's say I had maybe 4 or 5 3s that really could have knocked me off the edge in the front 9. But I think because we were just playing it was a nice, friendly game, the back 9, it just felt like, you know what, we're not working right now. It's sunny. And then all of a sudden there you go, 1 under. It was my best round, but it wasn't like fairy tale round, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What would you say to Karl's question? So give us a number, Chris. What number do you think would be your total number?
If you're going to play great tomorrow, but how many 3s would you still hit? Just give yourself a number.
4.
Okay. David?
Okay. So for me, Karl, shooting 80 would be a fantastic round of golf for me. That's kind of around my personal best. So I am going to say, I reckon I would still have 10 3s in there.
And the beauty of that is, and it's worth trying for a few rounds, is give yourself a number of 3s before you start.
Okay.
Write it in a journal or whatever. And the beauty of that is you're preempting your acceptance before you start. You're accepting the reality of the game. If you've allocated yourself 5, 6, 8, 10 3s before you even start, guess what? When they come along, and they will, you're much more able to deal with them.
Yeah.
Now, if you have less than you've allocated, well, that's great. If you have more than you allocated, well, it's just one of those days. But coming back to the original question of how do you develop the skill of acceptance, it's a multifaceted skill to develop, but that would be one way of doing it. That you look really deep into the eyes of the reality of the game, and the reality is there'll always be 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Yeah.
I had I mean, it's a sad story, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind me relating the story. I went to a memorial lunch the other day of a good friend of mine who I worked with for a couple of years. He was a great player, a guy called Dennis Dernian, who played on the European Tour in the late 80s. And Dennis actually still holds the world record for the lowest 9 holes of any major that has ever been played in the history of golf.
Whoa!
So he shot 28 at Royal Birkdale on the front 9 in 1983. That's some record, isn't it? So to have the lowest round in any major ever. I think him and Brad Faxon are tied. He actually lipped out on the 9th for 27. Now, as Dennis wouldn't mind me saying, as I say, he sadly passed away after a long illness. He then shoots 28 on the front 9, knocks it through the back of the 10th green at Royal Birkdale, dogleg left. And I think he knocked it into, there was a kind of a rut at the back of the green where there'd been a TV cable or something like that. Anyway, he wanted to get a ruling. And unfortunately, there was no referee close by. So it took something like half an hour to get the referee to give the ruling. And they had to let 2 games or 3 games through.
Mm.
On the back 9, he didn't hit a single green in regulation.
Right.
And he shot 38. He shot 38 on the back 9. So he went 28, 38. And he said the 38, in a funny kind of way, was better than the front 9 because he hit it all over the place.
Yeah.
But that's golf. That's a great player shooting unbelievable score on the front 9. Something happens, and he gets knocked out of centre, and the back 9 throws a whole bunch of other things at him.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's golf.
And that's why we love it. It's just so...
Yeah.
But what you say, we love it, Chris, but I think we keep denying the reality of the game because most people go out, and this is where, we take lessons and things like that. And really at the root of most lessons, I think, is if I take this lesson and if I work on something, surely at some point I will find the secret that will protect me from the feeling that bad shots give me. That's driving us at a deep level. Somebody can tell me something that will protect me from how I feel when I hit bad shots. Yeah. And that's the problem that we have because we're resisting that reality. We're resisting that experience.
So acceptance. I'll work on it, Dave.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And would you say, Karl, that like if we're labeling the shots and we're going out maybe playing a few rounds and we're labeling these shots 1s, 2s and 3s, it's kind of almost like a key performance indicator that your golf is kind of getting better when the quality of like the 3s, say, start getting slightly better. You know what I mean? It's not just all about, remember that really good shot, but like those bad shots are actually a lot better than they were 6 months ago.
The other thing that you'll get from it as well is that, again, when we go back to this idea that you're either seeing the golf course as a threat or an opportunity, we then our brain is either in pursuit of something or it's trying to avoid something. Yeah. I think most of us, when we go and play golf, because we're so attached to the score, we end up playing avoidance golf that, maybe we get to 2 under and we don't want to lose that. So we're falling inadvertently into the trap of avoiding dropping shots or avoiding, making a fool of ourselves or whatever. The beauty of the 1, 2, 3 is that you can go out there and play pursuit golf. And I don't mean being silly and taking on stupid shots. But if you went out there in the pursuit of as many 1s and 2s as you could possibly get in a round, every single shot then is an opportunity to gain something as opposed to an opportunity to lose something. Yeah.
No, that makes so much sense. And I think
the other thing we've got to remember is that all of us, when we've been growing up, we've been hypnotized into believing a version of golf that's not real. What I mean by that is that, if I torture myself these days and watch my football team, Man United, play a game of football as I did the other night, and I think at the end of those 2 hours, why have I wasted another 2 hours of my life that I won't get back? What I see when I watch United play football, I see the reality of the game. I see the good, the bad, and the indifferent. I see how they play. when we watch golf, we're not seeing the reality of golf, because all we're seeing is a microcosm of golf. We're watching the best players in the world having their best weeks, and we're watching an edited version of those best weeks.
Yeah.
So we're not seeing reality. As you've just said before, Dave, you play with Chris, who's a good player, and he hits bad shots. Well, guess what? So do all great players. But we don't see enough of that on TV.
No. I remember hearing a podcast a while ago. I think it was Scott Fawcett, who's been on your show, I think, a few times. And he said, if they showed you clips of the bottom of the pack at PGA Tour events, you'd be shocked at some of the shots you're watching. You will see chunk chips. You'll see badly missed putts. You'll see shots going out of bounds. But I think, to your point, I would say, as much as we love watching great golf on TV, it's probably killed a lot of golfers in terms of their expectations.
Yeah.
How low can you go?